Really couldn't even tell you what goals I set at the beginning of this year. So what with it being the second half of the year now, I really felt the need to sit down and do a mid-year reset to figure that question out. Like, what did I plan for at the beginning of the year and how the hell am I even doing moving toward it? I have a tendency to overcomplicate my systems, and this is really about going back to what works, eliminating redundancy, and checking in on how the hell I'm doing with all of my goals, because the fact of the matter is, I don't know. So much has changed over the course of this year that some of the things I thought I would be launching and doing in my business and working toward in my life, they have not happened. So I really wanted to kind of treat this as a check-in, B, a clean slate, and bring it all together in my Notion systems that eliminated redundancy and honestly stopped over-scheduling and over-planning me. I am sick of having 80,000 to-dos on every single day of every single week, of planning way too many projects for any given month or any given quarter, and this is my check-in to help eliminate that. Let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so because it is, the end of June, this is the time where I would be doing a weekly review, a monthly review, and a quarterly review. But as I started doing the June review and as I started doing the Q2 review, I realized something. I was not using my systems really to help me stay on top of things. And I think what that was leading to is a lot of overscheduling, a lot of working on multiple different projects, that I frankly just didn't have the capacity to work on. And it just wasn't making things easier from a capacity perspective. I was overscheduling, over planning, and it was just causing some problems. So what I ultimately decided to do was I decided to go back to my 2025 year planning. Let's go back to the last time I edited this, which was January 18th. Okay, so you'll see my entire promo plan in here, and my entire annual calendar in here. I laid out the entire year, and honestly, a lot of it was really good and worked really well for probably about the first quarter of the year. But this is what ended up happening that created a problem. There are several things in this master plan, this master calendar, that I ended up not moving forward with, offers that I decided to get rid of. And so there was a lot of stuff built into this plan that I just wasn't using. But the second issue with this is I use an OKR goal setting system, and I wasn't using any of that. So what ended up happening is I was working on way more projects at any one time than I frankly had the capacity for. And that's just because I wasn't using my systems. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going back through, kind of taking everything that was in these annual calendars, in these promo plans, and I ended up laying it out in a way that was a lot easier for me to see how much I had on my plate. And that was using my projects and objectives tracker. So I can now see, okay, in the month of July, I have 6 projects going on, but several of them are small. My biggest projects for this particular month are I'm working on adding a subject for my other business. And I am going to be working on the back to school Notion growth. And then I'm also hosting a podcast summit at the end of July. If you are a podcaster or somebody who does podcast guesting and you want to connect with more people who are podcasters and podcast guests, go ahead and check out the link down in the description and join us. We're going to have like 7 or 8 speakers. There's going to be 2 workshops every day, everything from systems to how to, leverage your VA more if you are a podcaster, to podcast tech, to branding of your podcast, all sorts of stuff like that. That podcast summit's going to be happening at the end of the month. So I really liked this layout because A, it's taking advantage of my systems, and B, I can now see where I have the number of projects that I have. That's actually the aggregate number that I used right here, is just how many projects that I have. And the one that I have the most of right now is December, but that's also probably my slowest month in general. And then I also tried to color coordinate this. I generally work on dark mode. I color coordinated everything. So the yellow are the things that are related to growth. Blue are things that are related to engagement. That's green. Greens are related to launch. Pink soft promotion, and purple is an admin project. So I color coded everything to kind of make sure that I wasn't doing too many launches back to back to back, to make sure that I wasn't doing too many admin projects. And you can see it's pretty well dispersed. So with all of that being said, I was able to go through and I was able to break out the different projects I was working on. And what I also did is I kind of enlisted ChatGPT in this process as well. So I'm kind of starting in the middle of a ChatGPT chat here, which is exactly how I did it when I did it, on my own. And I literally said, okay, I need help organizing all of my projects. And I told it, this is everything that I had. And at that point, August was getting really heavy. And this was kind of my red flag to realize, okay, this isn't going to work. I need something else to kind of externally come in and help me figure this out. August is a very heavy tutoring month for me, so I needed to account for that. So I laid out all of the projects that I had scheduled out so far, including kind of some 2026 planning that I'm already thinking about of when I'm going to host summits in 2026, because I want that to turn into kind of one of my primary conversion engines in my business. And then what I also went ahead and did is I listed all of the projects that I needed to schedule and said, help me schedule the projects out. And I really liked how it scheduled everything out and literally out to 2026. Because I'm already thinking about what summits I'm going to run next year. The summits I'm doing this year are on a very tight timeline, and let's just say I don't want to do that next year. So it helped me plan out all of these to really break down what was going to go into each of these things. Now, the AI that I'm using for this one, I call it my C-suite because it has different personas in it. It has my CEO persona, which is like the AI version of me, but with more business savvy. That's always what I say about my CEO version. My CMO version, which is trained to be a marketing strategist and knows my business super well. There's also a COO, a CFO. I've got a couple different C-suite personas that are built into this GPT. So I went back and forth. I hashed all of these out. And in summary, this all led to this plan that I have here. And this includes not only my projects for my burnout coaching and systems consulting business, but it also includes for example, my tutoring business. I did all of this. And so then I felt like I was finally more organized in a way where I wasn't overloading myself with way too many projects in any given season. So then the next thing that I went ahead and did is I actually did my quarterly review. It's pretty thorough. Oh, I just realized I skipped some steps in it. Oh, I skipped those because I was doing my review live inside of my community, which if you are looking for Notion support or burnout coaching support, head to coachellen.com/community. You can join my free subscriber hub and community there. I do live streams inside of that community quite frequently. But then I go through and I do the level 10 life, or I've also heard it called I call it a life evaluation or a life wheel. And I went through and I rated myself on these different categories in my life and then broke out what was going to make it feel like I was closer to a 10. And then what I went ahead and did is I went ahead and I planned the next quarter. And so then this helped me lay out my next quarter. And you can see in my next quarter, now I've got that same view I was looking at before, but just the things that I'm moving the needle on. And I kind of further hashed out my promotions, the goal of me promoting them there, so on and so forth. So the last part of this that I really want to think about that I haven't done yet, so I'm going to be doing live with you guys today, is all of this is business. All of this is work right now, which is kind of unsexy. And so what I really want to make sure I do is I really want to make sure I'm accounting for some of the other parts of my life that I want to make sure I focus on this quarter. In particular, my finances and my health. And so that's the part that I'm going to do right now to wrap this baby up. In my finance, in my health, I always, like I said before, hash out the things that would make me feel closer to a 10. And the things that would make me feel closer to a 10 here would be to establish and stick to my budgets, to have a weekly finance date, and to be debt-free. Now, debt-free is probably not going to happen for me this year, but the other ones can, establishing and sticking to my budgets and a weekly finance date. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go and work those into this system. I don't know that I need this to be a project, because I feel like it's just I need to just sit down and hash out my budgets. So I'm just gonna go to my quick capture page and I'm just gonna create a to-do for this. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna actually set aside some time next Saturday to do that. I think that would be best. And then I'll just go through and assign some of these guys so it gets properly sorted. All right, so that is going to be quick and dirty, be done pretty quickly. And then the other thing that was in here was to have a weekly finance date. I'm just going to make that a task in here as well. The reason I'm making this a task, I am also going to build it in my calendar, which I'll show you in just a second. But the reason I'm making it a task is I'm going to set it up to be a recurring task. And I personally like to do my finance dates on Fridays. So we're going to have this repeat every week. And it's pretty tedious. It's I put on a YouTube video in the background and whatnot. All right. So now I have this recurring thing in here. I also want to make sure that I schedule time in my calendar to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right here. We'll call this my weekly finance date. Actually, you know what I could do? I generally do my weekly reviews on Saturday morning, and I've found that the finance date works best when I tie it to my weekly review. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to tie it right to this to hopefully make it easier for me to implement. So now I've got it in my calendar. It's taking up some time on my calendar. And then I'm just going to pop back in here and put this on the Saturday instead. That's worked really well for me in the past, so it should work pretty well now. So now I've got the things that I want to do for my finances in here. Let's look at my health as well. So this is where I kind of struggle with how I work at the health goals into my systems, because the fact of the matter is these just boil down to habits. And a lot of these habits and these things that I'm talking about here are already built into my habit tracker. So they're built into my habit tracker, and then part of my weekly review process, which I think you guys saw in my last video, I check in on how many points I have per week, how many points I've kind of gotten over time. I check in on that every single week, and that works for me. Can't necessarily think of a way right now to further integrate this beyond this, because I do already feel like I've got the habit set. I have it built into my check-in. I'm constantly reviewing how are things going with my self-care, and I always check on stuff like that when I do my what worked and it didn't work. So I feel like I'm on the right track with this. So I feel like this is good, but I can always reevaluate in like a month. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna do in this process is I am going to update my vision board. I've got kind of my what would make me feel closer to a 10 in all of these areas. And so I'm just gonna kind of go through and make sure my vision board represents that. I do digital vision boards. I have a really big one because I have a massive monitor, and I use my vision board as the desktop background for that monitor. So, okay, so we're gonna start spirituality, morning meditations. I want to meditate in the afternoon, evening. I want to meditate on my cushion. So let's see. I've got to see, do I have, I really don't have morning meditations on here at all. So this is why we're doing this, is we're going to fix this. I have a really old picture of my meditation cushion. Here it is. Okay, so we're going to drop this right here. Sort of image. Okay, cool. So that is represented now. Finance hub, we've got sticking to my budgets, weekly finance date, and being debt free. So I want to work these into here. Kind of want maybe this to be like my finance date. I'm gonna put this one right here. We're gonna go back to this one and put it right here. Okay, so that's kind of my finances section. So something that kind of captures the vision. The vision for me of what I really want to create in my future is I want a home on the waterfront. So we're going to put this photo in here to kind of represent that. Okay. So then the next one is my business. And this might be a tricky one to kind of model, because one of the big things I want in my business is I want passive income. So this is kind of my finances section. And then, yeah, passive income. I am also working on a book. It's like a stamp. Okay. Okay, sweet. So there we go. That is it. I'm going to go ahead and download this so that I can put it on all of my devices. That is my mid-year reset. I kind of feel like I do a different reset every year because I never know what I'm going to need. But this is what I needed this year. I needed to like reinvigorate, re-inspire myself when it came to some of my goals. I needed to get freaking clear on what the hell the things were from the beginning of the year that I still wanted mid-year, because shit has changed and that is okay. And I needed to get back to using the systems that I know support me. So that's a little bit of what I did. I hope it gave you some inspiration for a mid-year reset as well. I don't think you need to do this at the start of July per se, just do it whenever works for you. But with that, I told you guys I would be back this week, and I was committed to it. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I always forget to say that until the end. But with that, my friends, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.